All right. This week in Mets history, let's talk about the Mets. Let's go, Mets go. The white hot New York Mets. We're going to start with history. I'm not a history buff, but I do like looking back from time to time. I get nostalgic, especially when it comes to my Mets and Giants. August 10th, 2004. Now, this was weird. I began reading this, and I was like, oh, I know who this is about. And I made a left turn real quick. While taking a cab to Shea from LaGuardia, Tommy Glavine was injured as the taxi collides with an SUV. He was my age right now, 38-year-old. Lost his 2 front teeth and needed 40 stitches to close facial lacerations. Dear God. And if you're a Mets fan, when you're originally, watching that, reading that, taking it in, you're thinking of Duaner Sanchez, right? I believe Duaner was the one. Was it K-Rod or Duaner? One of those two motherfuckers was in a taxi accident and essentially ruined the season because I think they had to bring in some other dickweed to close games. And it might have been during the 2007, 2008 collapse. Maybe it was 2006, but it was maybe it was 2009. It was during a season when we had a shot. We were in contention, and then that accident happened. And of course the pitcher was out for a while. And then when he came back, wasn't the same. And so Mets, it hurts. August 11, 2005. I remember watching this in real time. And I was 24 at the time, but I became a man. I was a late bloomer. Carlos Beltran and Mike Cameron, the collision heard around the world. Full speed running, and they just dove into each other. Full speed. I guess at the time Cameron was in center, Beltran was in right. And Cameron had a broken nose, multiple fractures in his cheekbones, had to undergo facial surgery, and Beltran had a concussion. That was like, okay, we can't, you two are no longer allowed to play in the same outfield. So that was the beginning of the end for Mike Cameron, who for some reason I was really high on. I was really into at the time. I was high on Mike Cameron. I don't know why, but I was like, why do we need Beltran? We have Mike Cameron. What an awful, awful take. I also read an article saying that the Mets had initially passed on Marcus Stroman in the 2012 draft, mostly because of his height, which was a major source of debate. He's 5'7", which I knew he was small, but 5'7" is small. It's below average, technically, if we're talking techniques. Scientifically, he's just he's not average height. They ended up taking Gavin Cecchini. Cecchini? Is that how you pronounce it? Do you want to talk about my love for prospects or my contempt for prospects? Gavin Cecchini is a reason is like he was talked about so fucking much over the first 3-4 years in our system, and he came up and he didn't do shit. I think people still talk about him. I don't even know what he's up to right now, but for every prospect you're high on that does well, there's a prospect that you're high on that doesn't do well. Almost feels like a coin flip sometimes. I don't know. But let's get to the real meat and potatoes of the Mets section of this show. And that's the historic run that we're on. I think we're 15-1 in our last 16, something like that. I mean, feels good. Of course, I'm always cautious. We've been bit in the past. We've been hot in the past. I don't know that we've been this hot for this long, though. This is probably our longest stretch of success in a very long time. Of course, they take the game. They take the series from the Marlins. They sweep them. And people are like, all right. So you won against shitty teams. You're able to win against bad teams. It doesn't mean anything. You're not a contender. You just beat up on bad teams. And it's like, well, if you're going to make a run at this thing, you have to win when you're expected to win. They got swept by the Marlins and everyone was canceling them earlier in the season. shutout in 1 run. I mean, and people were like, you know what, just sell the farm at that point. And I was probably one of those people. And they were like, the real test, and that was all you heard, and I probably said it too, the real test is this week when we play the Nats and the Braves. And what do? We almost swept the goddamn Nationals, who I believe they own the first wild card spot. Dramatic fashion on Friday night. I mean, that Friday night game, I couldn't sleep. I was jacked up. I could have ran an ultra marathon. Felt like I was on Compound V. One of the best games, one of the best come from behind wins in Mets history. Down 6-3. And was this the game that Stroman pitched? Might have been. That might have been the game that Stroman pitched, which Stroman has not. I mean, we talked about how they passed over him in the draft in 2012. And, you know, people are very happy about the energy he brings to the clubhouse, positivity, all that's great. And I hope he continues to function at that level. But goddamn, man, give us just a little bit better outing. Just a little bit. I think he struck out 9. But you got to give us more than 5 or 4 innings. You know, we need 6 or 7. So another kind of, you know, mixed, you know, he didn't have a play of the week like he did last outing. But again, I think he's like, let me see if I can find the stat line here. 10 innings pitched, 10 1/3, 16 hits, 7 earned runs, 1 homer, 5 walks, 12 Ks, 6.10 ERA. I mean, that's not what we signed up for. I mean, you can do better with Vargas. You know what I mean? But the come from behind win, I don't know. I mean, Captain Hindsight over here, you know, looking back, acting like I knew. But Doolittle has a very checkered past when it comes to the Mets. Every other team, he's fine. But with the Mets, he just loses it. He can't figure us out. So when we're down 6-3, 2 on for Todd Frazier, I'm thinking, you know, Todd has been counted down and out so many times this year. People want to give up on him so many times. I mean, I was even saying, you know, it was like a foregone conclusion that he was going to get traded. And he comes up with one of the most clutch home runs in Mets history. 3-run blast to tie it. I was watching my iPad on mute because we were engaged in something else, maybe Glow, maybe The Sopranos. I can't remember. I mean, that's the life you live when you're with someone who's not a sports fan. You got to sacrifice. It's all about sacrifice in relationships, but ties it up. And then Conforto comes up, and Conforto has just been out of his mind. You know, we said that he was hot. I mean, you know, the stat line before that game was the Mets were 0-44, in which they trailed after 8 innings. I mean, you know, that's like, yeah, I mean, that's like Washington Generals versus Harlem Globetrotters type level of losing. 0-44. But there was something about the energy, the fact that the stadium was packed and the fans were up and vocal, and that had a lot. That had to have something to do with it. And I think Frazier fed off of that. I think Conforto fed off of that. And I thought it affected Doolittle, Dr. Doolittle. Here's a stat that Rovell tweeted. Home teams went down at least 3 going to the bottom of the 9th, won 5 of 507 games this season. It's according to ESPN stats. And the odds of the Mets winning in that spot went down 6-3 in the bottom of the 9th, less than 1%. I mean, if you can't get on board with this team after that, after Conforto lines a shot over the right fielder and scores, was it Lagares or Panik, one of the two? And he gets his shirt ripped off. I mean, shirts off, walk off. That's something special. And then to do it again in the next game. Just phenomenal stuff. Just, and I'm squeaking. I'm like out of breath. I'm so excited. Because that next game, it was like I was even more sure of it. I was like, oh, 1%. Yeah, got it. We've gone from the second worst record in the National League to a tie for the second wildcard spot in 4 weeks. That's how bananas the fucking baseball season is. And how long it is. 162 games. Spanning April, May, June, July, August, September. 6 months. Half a friggin' year. A lot of stuff happens in 6 months. I had a job 6 months ago. Making good money. And was assured of a position. Full-time, salary, benefits. And then now this. Mets own the best record in Major League Baseball since the All-Star break at 18-6. Have given up a Major League best average of 3 runs per game over that span. I mean, yeah, you can't say much more about the starting pitching. Stroman aside, Wheeler's giving you a chance to win. I know DeGrom had a really shitty outing on Sunday, but Thor's fighting through trouble, getting out of trouble. I don't think, him and DeGrom, it's like when the bases are loaded, you almost figure we're going to get out of this. There's not going to be much damage, if any damage. And Mats is all over the place, but the Mets starting pitchers are putting them in a good position to win. And Seth Lugo continues to be lights out. And the fact that he finished, what was it? The game on, is it Friday or Saturday? One of the 2 games, he goes the 8th and the 9th inning. He was already at like 20 plus pitches when he stayed in for the 9th, and you're like, oh, what is going on with Edwin Diaz? I mean, that's a major statement for Diaz. It's like, hey, we really want to win. We'd love for you to get over this hump that you're, this little snafu, this little ripple. But yeah, we really want to win this game. It's too important for us for you to fuck it up. So we'd rather have Lugo go. Yeah, Sunday's games. But Louis Guillorme with the big knock. I mean, if you were in doubt after Friday's win, you're like, it's a fluke. The crowd was into it, whatever. Louis Guillorme, who I called in my blog post about Joe Panik, because the team signed Joe Panik and they designated Hechavarria for assignment, which I did not see coming. I didn't think that was going to happen, but I forgot that Hetchy was due like a roster bonus of $1 million if he hit a certain date. So I guess, in a money-saving move, yet again, they decided to designate Hetchy, even though Hechavarria was playing way better, offensively at least, than Guillorme. Every time I see Guillorme's name, I just think of Guillotine. I'm just going to call him Guillotine. I called Guillotine an abomination to the art of hitting. That's pretty savage. And I don't normally say that word, but yeah, it was I really went all in on Guillotine. And he showed me up big time. He gets the game-tying home run. And then Jonathan Davis, JD, comes through with the sac fly to win the game on Saturday. So it's Guillorme's first ever home run. Couldn't have asked for a better time to go than then. If you weren't a believer, Saturday, Guillotine's like, hey, check this out. Put this on for size. And now you have people talking. Like, okay, Mets are for real. And then Sunday they come out and lay a duck. Partially, it's twofold. Alonso comes up with that play, makes the throw. We don't have 2 runs score when they shouldn't. 3 runs, 2 runs. You know, it looked like on the play, DeGrom kind of stutter stepped or like he hesitated. If he just ran through the bag, I believe the throw's right there. So you can only pin so much on Alonso. I mean, he could have made a better throw. DeGrom probably could have made a better play. Of course, the team scratches back and gets within gets within. I mean, if it's 5-4 going into the bottom of the ninth, I think the Mets tie it, possibly win it. But of course, Diaz gets his chance. We're down 5-4, and it's like, here, Edwin, here's your opportunity. Odds are, stats show, blah, blah, we'll probably lose, but keep us within striking distance. Give us a fighter's chance. And of course, he gives up, was it a 2-run bomb? I mean, I forget where I saw this. It was on Twitter, but it was some kind of graph that was just showing how they're basically showing I mean, in the plainest terms, simplest terms, he's not executing his pitches, which means like the catcher sets up and is like, throw the ball here, please. And Diaz is like, nah, I'm going to go over here. And his slider has been trash. If he had any kind of control over his slider, any kind of mastery over his slider, it's a whole different ball game, but he doesn't. He lacks control and he's not hitting his spots. And this is what happens. But can you imagine if he does? Because you saw Jeurys Familia pitch a hell of an 8th inning. On Sunday, one of the games, he looked like old school 2015 Familia. Not World Series Familia. Talking regular season, lights out Familia. Shut her down. Tie it up. Put a bow on it. That kind of Familia. So if he is back to that level, and we got Lugo, who apparently has like a tear in his ligament in his elbow and is still pitching phenomenally. Outrageous. His wife is one of the most positive people I've ever seen on Twitter, by the way. It's like, I mean, very motivational. I almost want to do something about it. But, I'm lazy as fuck. So you got Familia, Lugo, firing on all cylinders. If you can just get Diaz back to some shadow of himself, just a fraction of where he used to be, I don't know how you can bet against this team. I mean, they're winning despite him, in spite of him. Now, the Braves series, not to fall back into that typical rhetoric, but like this is the major test. I'm recording this on Tuesday, so they got the Braves tonight, Braves tomorrow, Braves on Thursday. 3 games set. It's in Atlanta. And we'll see. And we've always been talking about, the wild card. August 12th, 1969. Mets woke up 8 games back in the NL East standings. We all know what happened there. They went on a fucking tear. 39-11, something like that, down the stretch. Ended up taking the division. The Cubbies collapsed. August 12th, 2019. Mets wake up 8 games back in the NL East standings. I mean, it's hard not to get excited about that. It's hard not to jump out of your skin thinking about how we could replicate that. We've already won 8 series in the second half, which equals our first half total. So it feels like we're getting over the first half jitters. We're getting that confidence now. If you can take 2 of 3 from the Braves, personally, for me, it's like, I think we can do it. But even if you just don't get swept. If you can take 1 out of 3 and you're threatening to win the other 2, you come close but fall short for whatever reason, that's not, that disastrous. I think you got to look at that as a moral victory. I know people are like, no such thing, but on their home turf, they're the second best team in the National League behind the Dodgers. So, we gave the Dodgers a run for their money in LA. So, dude. And it's a lot of this is because of Jonathan Davis, and because of Michael Conforto. Davis has an OPS of 1.186 at home. It's the third highest home OPS, which that is on-base percentage plus slugging percentage. He's the third highest home OPS of any player with at least 100 plate appearances behind Charlie Blackmon and Christian the Ass Eater Yelich. As for Conforto, he's already one of the best players in franchise history. It's time to value him as such. That was a tweet that went out, and it was accompanied with this stat. He is now the third Met with at least 100 home runs through age 26, behind Darryl Strawberry and David Wright. Now, I mean, like, Straw had 186 by age 26, and Wright had 140, and Conforto has 100. The people love to stand for Conforto, and it's hard not to when he's running around the field without a shirt after winning the game. Zach Wheeler, he's given up 3 runs or less in 6 of his last 7 starts dating back to June 27th. I mean, when you give up 3 runs or less from your starting pitching with this offense, that should be a win. Conforto, 8 home runs, 19 RBIs since the All-Star game. His home run pace is around 33, which that's nothing to sneeze at. And of course, when the team signed Joe Panik, they had designated Hetchy, but they also had to put Brandon Nimmo on the 60-day IL. And they said that he was supposed to begin a rehab assignment like this week, but I don't know. I've said it from day one, like, bulging disc in the neck, that's no joke. Like, he's probably done for the season, if I had to guess. I mean, you look at Wright and his spinal stenosis, he pretty much never bounced back from it. He had that brief run in the playoffs in 2015 that was huge. He was able to kind of give us a bump in 2016, but then ultimately, it's your neck, dude. It's your spine. Any kind of like damage to that, and you're c'est la vie. Team also brought in Panik's been serviceable. He's getting on base. I think he started the rally on maybe Friday night, scored on Saturday. So he's getting on base and he's scoring, and that's all you can ask for. You just don't want an automatic out. He made a great play at second, diving to his left. Play that I don't think you're going to see definitely not from Cano, probably not from Hetchy or Guillotine. And the fact that he's a Mets fan is just like, I love how they're just bringing in Mets fans. Like Stroh saw Johans no. The Panik, his brother's a big Mets fan. He grew up watching the Mets. And then this guy, Brad Brach, I don't even know how to say his last name, from Baltimore. They pick him up. And the beauty of this guy is, like, he's great. He's a right-hander, and he's going to be great against right-hand hitting. So they have the left-handed specialist in Louis Avalon, who comes in against lefties. And then they have Brach against the right-handers. It's just these little moves. And I pointed this out, I think, in last week's show, that it's reminiscent of the 2015 series of moves that they made. The one big splash with Yo in 2015, Stroh in 2019, but then they made these little moves here and there to give them just fill in little needs here and there that don't really pop out to you on paper, but in the moment they're huge. I have to apologize to Wilson Ramos. I wrote him off big time. I was like, I was totally for trading him. I thought he was a bust, and he's come up big in a lot of big situations. No more of this, like, I'm just going to hit it through the hole on the right side of the field, which seemed like that was his signature play moving forward. He's been hitting dongs lately, which is great. One more comment on Jonathan Davis. So this is more relevant to last week, although he's continued to do well. From July 8th to August 6th, the Mets playoff odds have increased by 35 points. Huge. And Davis has hit 385 in 77 plate appearances. And his WRC plus, I didn't even bother to look this up, but it's the 7th highest in baseball. I mean, read into the numbers what you will. Stats are for losers, but like, the guy is ripping the ball to the point where, like, Saturday night, they walk Alonso to get Davis, and you're like, what are you doing, dude? Yeah, Alonso can mash, but he's kind of been spotty lately. Davis is literally engulfed in flames. And of course, he hits the sac fly, but he could have done a lot better. Mets are 19-5 over the last 24. Zach Wheeler, 1.33 ERA in 20 1/3. Noah Syndergaard, 1.78 ERA in 35 1/3. 9 home runs by Conforto, which we mentioned. 2.35 starter ERA, 2.91 bullpen ERA, largely due to the fact that they have been using Avalon versus the lefties, and Lugo has just been amazing. And to a certain extent, I guess Justin Wilson has been playing to where he can. Ahmad Rosario batting .348. I mean, Lugo's stats were crazy until he gave up that home run. And Juan Soto, talk about a Mets killer. That guy has not done anything wrong, I don't think. I haven't really looked into his background, but he needs to be canceled. I can't have, and he's young. He's like 20 or something like that. So I can't have another friggin' 20 years of this guy ruining my life. But I mean, it's feeling right. Just feels right. 3 games set against the Braves, and then you got the Royals in Kansas City, which I don't believe Kansas City poses a threat. I know that we haven't done that well on the road, but you got to think that they're going to take at least 2 out of 3 there. And then they got the Indians at home. So at least it's at home. But Cleveland is hot as fuck. But key is stay healthy, make the right moves, and just pray to the powers that be that Diaz is touched by an angel or something. Maybe he has a Christmas Carol moment. That's a callback to Glow. People are like, why are they doing this Christmas Carol episode for the finale? You got to remember Ruth, who plays Zoya, who plays Scrooge in the Christmas Carol musical for Glow. She's going through what Scrooge is going through. She's at a crossroads. She's kind of just going through life. She needs a wake-up call. She needs direction, purpose, meaning, significance. So that's what the whole Christmas Carol point was Ruth is Scrooge. I think Edwin Diaz is Scrooge. He's got to have a wake-up call. He's got to be visited by 3 ghosts. He's got to see that Grim Reaper and be like, I don't want to die, dude. I got a lot of stuff that I need to do before I meet my maker. And one of them is helping the Mets win a goddamn World Series.